despite being literally little bundles of joy, trading cards somehow managed to make a lot of people unhappy. So we're going to talk about that. There is a reason that in the Ten Commandments, which doesn't really matter how you feel about the Bible, the Ten Commandments are a code of conduct prescribed to a people in a place and time to bring order to anarchy. That's their purpose, and they are a useful tool for doing exactly that. In the list of 10 things that you should not do if you want to have an ordered society, coveting, or rather comparison, is listed twice. From that, we can understand that comparison is a common ingredient in unhappiness, unrest, frustration, and chaos. And comparison is a lot of what drives the unhappiness in the TCG space, whether it's collectors, players, or people doing TCG businesses. Almost everybody has some complaint or other that they're going out and telling the world about how horrible it is that scalpers are beating them to target, or maybe just other different scalpers, because it's like a lot of the people that are complaining about scalpers seem to also be scalpers, or at the very least, like if they do go to sell something, even if they don't think of themselves as a scalper, they're going to sell at market price. And on Facebook it's going to say like no lowball offers, I know what I got, so. But I mean, enough of that. People, players, collectors, business owners, we compare our experience to what we perceive or believe to be other people's experiences. And we see highlight reels on social media. We see people pulling our chase cards. We see people getting the sets that we want to open. We look at that and we can be surrounded by an abundance of other stuff, even other trading cards, other Pokemon sets, or other trading card games that are cool, like surrounded by opportunities to have a great time or to build an awesome business. But because we don't have the one opportunity that we are paying attention to, and somebody else does, we get upset. We compare. And then that fuels all this chaos and fighting and argument online. And I mean, I see it in every Discord community with anything. But I mean, we're talking about trading cards. Like any TCG Discord, you just scroll through the chats and people are complaining about stupid stuff. Like, this was the worst drop at Costco or Sam's Club that I ever attended. There were like 200 people there. Nobody could get anything. You're comparing these experiences to some ideal that you have in your head of what you should be able to experience, or what other people are experiencing. But you may not be willing to make the trade of money or time that these other people are making. There are plenty of people who have no objection to paying market price to open up their favorite sets, but then you are upset that you can't open your favorite set because you don't want to pay market price for it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And yes, you're allowed to feel whatever you want to feel, but if you want to be happy, if you want to be satisfied, then it is going to be in your best interest to look at what you do have with gratitude rather than to look at what you don't have with desire and envy and coveting. Don't look around at other people, at the cards that they're pulling, at the collections that they have, at the business that they've built, and compare what you have to what they have. Because you don't know what they have gone through to get to where they're at. You don't know what they've sacrificed, what they've missed out on. You might perceive that they're getting something they don't deserve, that it was easy for them and it's hard for you. But most of the time, that's not going to be the case. Everyone has paid a price to be where they are. And sometimes the price that they pay is just being who they are. If you look at someone and you think, like, you wish that you had what they had, but you are glad that you are not who they are. There's a connection often between who people are and what they have. And so if you look around and tell yourself, I wish I had what so-and-so had, but so-and-so is such a jerk and I'm glad I'm not like him. Well, then it's a good thing you don't have what he has, because there's a good chance that in order to get what he has, the way that he got it, you would have to be like him. If you don't like that person, and you don't want to be like that person, then it is actually good fortune for you that you were not tempted in the same ways to make the same moral trades or sacrifices as they have made to get to where they are. And if the consequence of that is that you don't get certain pieces of cardboard, or you don't reach a certain revenue level in a certain amount of time, so what? You get to be who you are, and you're not who they are. You don't have to go through life being them. When we look around at big YouTubers, people with business, a lot of people hate Rudy. And Rudy, as a result of the platform that he's built, he now runs the risk of going out into public and being recognized by people who hate him. He has to hire and pay for armed security now to protect some of his investments. Brian has built a platform where he gets active threats to his life and his family and his property. The trade-off is that he also gets a lot of notoriety, and he grows quickly, and he's built a very large business, which is awesome. But you may not want the consequences that have come with his success. So you might think that you envy what someone has or where they're at, but the reality is that if you knew what they had to go through to get what they have, you might then make the decision that you would not want to go through that. You would not want to be born with that neurochemistry. You would not want to have that upbringing. You would not want to have that early career that sent them down the path of entrepreneurship instead of down the path of like a successful, prosperous W-2 life. In my case, I have the good fortune of having been able to figure out how to make a living as an entrepreneur and not be reliant on employment anymore. Some people may look at that with envy, but the trade-off in my case is that I was never really able to get a good job. That's why I had to go down the road of entrepreneurship in the first place. I've spent a lot of time alone. I've missed out on a lot of things that most people think of as normal. And yes, the reward is greater independence, greater autonomy, but it's a lonely path. So you got to figure out, what do you value? And what is the gap between what you actually value and what you have right now? And then make a reasonable plan to bridge that gap and focus exclusively on that. Don't look around you at what everybody else has. Don't look at what you have, compare it to somebody else, and then measure that gap and get upset about the difference. No. Set your mind's eye upon that which you would like to have, compare it to what you do have right now, soberly, without any judgment, just assess the gap and then start making a plan to fix it. Because the difference between what you want and what you have is who you have to become to get what you want. There are aspects about how you live, how you think, what you believe, how you conduct yourself that are going to have to change. You are going to have to grow, to transform, to bridge the gap between what you currently have and what you want. You can't just get what you don't have without transforming into someone that's a little bit different from who you are. Time itself, what time measures, time is a dimension, a unique aspect of measurement. It measures change. So no matter what, you are changing. Now you might be changing into a more entrenched version of what you were last week, last year, but that's what you're sacrificing is the opportunity cost of having become someone else, having grown or transformed or achieved something different than what you ended up doing. And this kind of ties in with regrets, and I'm going to do a longer video about regrets specifically, but when I was younger, I used to kind of live by the catchphrase that I wanted to live on purpose and die without regrets. As I have grown, though, I have realized that it is not possible to live a life without regrets. Regret is guaranteed. And the decision that you have to make is which regrets do you want to carry to your grave? What are the things that you want to leave undone? Because you cannot do all the things that you want to do. You cannot have all of the things that can be had. You have to choose. And in my opinion, one of the keys to happiness is walking a path of your choosing instead of following a path that has been prescribed to you. When I look around, the most consistently unhappy people are the people who seem to be living according to what is told to them. The consensus of what the internet thinks is the way that they should live their life, or the way that they should conduct their business, or the way that they should go about their relationships. When people hold themselves up to all of these external standards and they discover that they come up short, that creates unhappiness. Now, there are certainly circumstances where there are certain things that are objective. But when you really drill down to them, objectivity is pretty nebulous. And most day-to-day decisions happen in a gray area. So you have to be bold and decisive about who you want to be, and you need to protect your mind, because your mind is a garden, and what grows there is what you plant in it. If you want to be happy, that's actually easy to accomplish. You pretty much just have to choose to be happy. And there are some of you who will respond to that saying, you don't understand it, you're privileged, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then there are some of you who are going to respond to that and say, yeah, that's absolutely true. I have suffered much and chosen not to allow it to make me unhappy. That's all perspective. Every moment is a bonus. There's a concept that has transcended many cultures. I think of it as death meditation. The Aztecs had a tradition of death meditation. The samurai had a tradition of death meditation. The Stoics had a tradition of death meditation. Many Buddhists have a tradition of death meditation. How I use it is basically every moment, every day, I think of myself as having already died. And everything that I do today, everything that I get to experience, it's all just extra life. And yeah, it's going to come with hardships. Yeah, I'm not going to accomplish all the things that I want to accomplish. Yeah, I'm going to have regrets. But because I am already dead, I have no expectations. There's no ideal, optimal, perfect version of myself or my life that I have to pursue or live up to. It's not like that. Everything that I get to do is a bonus. Whatever I was going to become, I have already become that. Today is brand new. It's a bonus. And so with this extra time, I'm just going to decide what I want to do with it. And my decision-making razor is who is the person I want to be? What is the life that I actually want to have? Because I've disappointed everyone in my life in many ways. That's just part of life, is that you disappoint the people you care about. Now, that doesn't mean that I always disappoint them, but I have disappointed them. I've let people down. I've let myself down. And I have to allow those things to be in the past. I've missed out on opportunities that I knew in the moment I should have pursued. And so if there was an objective best potential life for me to live, the odds are pretty good that I've already missed out on it. I've already messed it up thoroughly. And so I have to decide, am I going to squander the rest of my time because I have missed out on the best possible life for myself? Or am I going to use every moment as best as I can? And am I going to choose happiness? And choosing happiness means not choosing other things that make you unhappy. In the context of this video, that means comparing yourself to other people and looking around and wanting things that you can't have, complaining about how things are not fair. From petty stuff like I couldn't log into Pokemon Center in time to get Pokemon 30th, to bigger things like I got scammed by a big customer, lost one of the biggest investments I ever made, or I didn't do my taxes right. Turns out I have a fat tax bill that I owe the IRS that I'm going to be paying on for the next decade. These are things I've experienced. So, not the Pokemon Center thing. I've never actually tried to buy anything from the Pokemon Center. I learned a while ago not to chase sealed, especially not new sealed, because there's always stuff available. It's just not the hottest stuff. So I just pay attention to other areas. But you just got to figure out, where are you going to direct your attention? And this is a concept that I am always coming back to. You can choose to be grateful for your life. You can choose to use your life wisely. Or you can choose to go about your life in a state of perpetual lamentation, where you are just always upset because there's always something unfair about your situation. There's always something unfair about what you have compared to what others have. There are always ways that you have not gotten what you deserved and somebody else got what you think you deserved. That's always going to be the case. Get over it. Not because it's morally better to get over it, but because it's better for you. It's better for your mind. You're going to be happier. You're going to be healthier. And honestly, you're probably going to be more prosperous, because instead of just being angry and bitter all the time, you're going to be focused, driven, ambitious. You're going to be in pursuit of something instead of in rebellion against something. I think I've gone far enough on this topic for this video. So if you like trading cards, buy some from me at www.getdkc.com. See you later.